Hello. Hey, this is Warren Redlick. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to be talking about Tesla's growth, what Giga Berlin tells us about Tesla's growth. Giga Berlin just hit 5,000 vehicles a week. Thank you to moderators Mark Plott and Mark Potocznik for moderating the chat. We're going to talk about Tesla. We're going to talk about how the company's growing, how this translates to growth. We're going to talk about SpaceX. We're going to talk about SpaceX Starship in particular, and we're going to talk about the Boring Company. But we're going to start with this, and we're going to have a live chat. And then after this video, this is going to go about an hour. After this video, I'm going to do a second live stream on the Daily Live, warrenredlick.locals.com. There's a link to that in the description below. And that I'm going to talk about the fentanyl crisis and how it relates to the war on drugs and something called the Iron Law of Prohibition. That'll be in 1 hour from now if you're watching live, or just click the link below if you're watching. Just click the link in the video description below if you want to watch it. And that's the Daily Live. That's free to watch. If you support me on the Daily Live, it's greatly appreciated. That's, as a YouTube creator, we're vulnerable to fluctuations in how YouTube pays us. And when we have something like locals or Patreon support, that secures us from the insanities of chasing the algorithm on YouTube and advertising, fluctuations and all that. So I greatly appreciate any support. I want to thank my supporters on Patreon and locals and YouTube channel members as well. And you can subscribe to me on Twitter now. You can get the t-shirts at elonbits.com. You can get the stainless steel water bottles at elonbits.com as well. Okay, got that out of the way. So 5,000 a week, 1 year after delivering the first vehicles to the customers. And if we look, you can see just a couple days ago, they mentioned we delivered 1 year ago, we delivered our first made in Germany vehicles. This talks about ramp. Tesla, Elon has said before that it takes 12 to 18 months, and I think Drew Baglino has said this as well. It takes about 12 to 18 months to ramp a factory. The factory starts, at producing 0 vehicles, then you produce your first vehicle, and then Tesla typically takes 12 to 18 months to go from 0 to producing at or near capacity of the factory. And then they seem to squeeze out more after that first 12 to 18 months, and they find ways of generating additional production after that. But 5,000 builds a week translates to 250,000 a year. It's only March. The target that we know of is 500,000 a year, and we know they've said that they're really they've applied to Germany for permission to expand production to 1 million units a year. Now, whether that's more Model Ys or whether that's the next generation vehicle platform, we don't know yet, but this is a sign of growth. So I just want to play this video for you. This is a video that Tesla showed. This is how they make a Model Y in Giga Berlin. I muted the video so you're not hearing the music, but just to give you a sense of this is what's going on in Giga Berlin in order to make a vehicle. That's the process it goes through. This is not the unbox process that they talked about for the Generation 3, the next generation platform. That's the current process, which is like a straight assembly line. So I did a little spreadsheet. You guys know I love spreadsheets. So let's assume if they're at 5,000 a week now, that would be a 250,000 a year run rate, because there's 50 weeks in a year. There's really 52 weeks in a year, but call it 50 weeks in a year times 5,000. Did I get my math wrong? That's 250,000. 5 times 50 is 250. That's 250,000. But they're still ramping. So we're only in March. So by the time we get to December, they might be at their 10,000 a week run rate. So I think 300,000 for the year is pretty conservative for Giga Berlin. As far as we know, Giga Texas is a little bit behind Giga Berlin. So I think a 250,000 target for Texas is reasonable. Shanghai appears to be on a ballpark million vehicle a year run rate. Who knows? There's some indication they may be cutting production. I don't think so. I think they're just reorganizing production. Elon does not typically want to reduce production. Fremont, 600,000 might be light. So I think you put all these numbers together. If you put all these numbers together, you get 2.15 million vehicles produced. Elon said they were targeting, and Zach said they were targeting 1.8 million deliveries for 2023. Elon said they might be able to pull out 2 million. This is suggesting over 2 million is not out of reach. And this is the point about growth, is that the reason that the title of the video is about Tesla's growth is we see it go in fits and starts. And I should be clear, this is production, not deliveries. This isn't sales. This is how many vehicles they would produce. Ultimately, we expect that every vehicle Tesla produces will be sold to a customer and delivered, but we definitely see lags between production and deliveries. So will we see a further lag here? Now, I think Q1, we probably saw more deliveries than production. So we're going to wait and see what how all these numbers add up. I think the latest numbers I'm seeing, people are expecting 420,000 deliveries in Q1. If you're seeing growth from Q1, 420, let's say 450,000 would already be 1.8 million. So the path to 2 million is pretty straightforward, and it's potentially more. Ken asks, will all factories make cars, batteries, and mega packs? No, not all factories will make mega packs, that's for sure. And not all factories will make batteries, I don't think. I mean, maybe eventually they will, but not now. Ken also asks, will Berlin be at 500,000 by the end of the year? If you follow the 12 to 18 months, if they're a year out, they should be at full ramp in 18 months, which is 6 months from now, which would be September. So by the end of December, should they be there? Yes. Europe works differently than China and Texas, so maybe it's going to take a little longer, but they should be getting close to 500,000 vehicles a year or 10,000 a week by the end of the year. I think that's the expectation. It may be increasing the number of shifts. There may be some other challenges, but I think they're going to get there. And if they get to 450,000 by the end of the year and 500,000 by March of 2024, these things don't matter that much. I think people tend to focus on, they want the immediate results. But, I just wanted to hit this that, we did 500,000 in 2020. We did 936,000 in 2021, which was way more than 50% growth from 500,000, 500,000 growth on 50% from 500,000 would have been 750. So 2021 was a monster boom year. Now, 2022 was only 1.3 million, only 47% growth in production. That looks like that was going to be a lag year, and the growth to 2023 should be more than 50%. Again, you never know what kind of curveballs are going to get thrown at us and thrown at Tesla. You never know what's going on, but I just think these numbers look promising. It looks like Berlin should hit 300,000 and maybe 350 this year. Texas should hit 250 and maybe 300. If they hit 350 and 300, now you're talking about 2.25 million. Shanghai, I think there's some thought that Shanghai is going to reduce production. That doesn't make sense to me. I think Shanghai is really going to grow, but 1 million is certainly within reach for Shanghai. And Fremont could easily break 600,000. So this number might be conservative. I tend to be overly optimistic. We got to remember that there's a week where there's a shutdown here. There's a couple of weeks where there's a shutdown there because they're revamping something. But, a number over 2 million looks really, really likely at this point. Let me just address this question in the chat. There's a question from Joe Wilder. Will Tesla do something to make structural battery packs more repairable? No, that's not something that's necessary or important for Tesla to do. This is the kind of misguided question. If there's damage to a Tesla structural pack, that's frame damage. If a regular car suffers frame damage, then it's totaled. So if a Tesla suffers damage to its structural battery pack, that's frame damage, and any insurance company is going to total that vehicle. Now, the key with Teslas is, number one, they absorb crashes better than other vehicles. They're less likely to get as damaged because they're designing the vehicles to survive crashes better. And number two, they're the safest cars on the road in a variety of ways. And the big thing that Tesla's working on is not crashing. And they have fewer crashes than other cars. So no, it's not that there's no repair needed. It's that if you have a car that has frame damage, that's almost always going to be considered a total loss by an insurance company. That's just what happens with cars when there's frame damage. They just write it off as a total loss. So let's hope that there's fewer accidents and that becomes less of an issue. But the same question comes up with any other vehicle, whether it's electric or not. But there's no point in repairing something on a total loss. What they will do if a Tesla is wrecked and totaled is they will recycle the battery pack and make a new battery pack for a new vehicle. Any predictions on Tesla energy numbers for Q1? I think Tesla energy numbers will be bigger. I mean, that's another part of the growth story. Thank you for bringing that up, William. So if I'm correct that Tesla's going to break 2 million, in 2023 on total vehicles produced, not delivered, but produced. It was 1.37 million. I think 1.37 million in 2022. So 2 million would be, more than 50% growth, in the ballpark of 50% growth. I think we're going to break that. Megapack is growing faster. Sorry, leave Megapack out for a second. Tesla Energy is growing faster. They've told us that Tesla Energy is growing faster than the vehicles. Vehicles are growing 50% a year. Energy is growing 150 to 200% a year. So we're going to see significant growth in energy on the energy side. The thing is, the energy side is a relatively small percentage of the company's performance. Supercharger is going to see additional revenue, but that's like 1% of company revenue. Energy, I think, is 10% or less of company revenue. So if energy triples and the cars increase 50%, then energy might reach 10%. It's really more 2024, 2025 when energy starts to make a much bigger impact. And then at the same time, you have, at some point, some of us think that FSD is going to go, full, level 5, whatever you want to call it, will be able to drive without a human in it. That's going to be a big game changer for everything. Have I seen the charts Roland Percher and Tesla Kairov report posted? No, I have not. Competition is coming. Yes, Mark. I have not seen any updates on Neuralink. No. It's 1.21 gigawatts, Mark, not 2.21. Oh, 2.20. All right, I see where you're going there. So, all right. So I just wanted to hit this point, just to be clear, we should see greater than 50% growth in vehicle production and deliveries. I think we're going to see a decrease in the average vehicle selling price. I think that's likely that the average selling price will fall somewhat. So that doesn't mean automotive revenue might not increase by that much. At the same time, if FSD crosses the threshold, more people start signing up for FSD, that could increase. But I don't know when we're going to see FSD cross that threshold where more people buy it. But then energy is going to increase by more than 50%. So I think we have a really good shot at Tesla increasing revenue by more than 50%. Supercharger revenue is small, but probably going to increase more than 50%. You're adding other EVs. I don't know what the pricing of energy effect that's going to have, but supercharger is a small piece of it. Gross margin of Megapack now versus when they ramped. The Tesla Energy's margin, if you look at the Q4 numbers, Tesla Energy had 1.3 billion in revenue, 1.15 billion in profit. So it works out to about 150 million in profit on 1.3 billion in revenue. So it's a little more than 10% gross margin. Xavier, that's coming up later in the video. Relativity is coming up later in the video. So I would say right now, overall, Tesla Energy is about 10 to 15% gross margin. The theory is that when they start manufacturing Megapacks at scale, that margins will go up. But I'm not really focused on margins at this point. I think margins will come over time. I'm focused on the revenue side, figuring that the profit side will come along, and I don't think we need to worry about the profit side as much. And we also need to recognize, if you listen to Zach Kirkhorn, the CFO or master of coin for Tesla, the gross margin is the wrong number to look at. The operating margin is a better number to look at. Tesla's gross margins may suffer a little bit, but Tesla's operating efficiency is improving. So operating margin is staying pretty consistent. So that's a good story. That's good numbers. Fired Up Phil says, I'd like to see the stock price at 300 by the end of the week. Thanks. I want the stock. I'm trying to sell my house. We've had some bumps in the road with the sale of the house, but I want the stock price down around 100 when I get the cash for my house so I can buy more stock. All right. So let me move on really quick. I want to cover a couple other topics, then we'll come back to the Q&A. Starship and SpaceX. So this is from Eric Berger, who wrote the book Liftoff, which is a summary of the early days, or the story of the early days of SpaceX. SpaceX's three main competitors in Russia, Europe, and the United States have launched 3 rockets in 2023. SpaceX just launched 3 missions in 3 days. I watched 2 of them, I think. And Elon said, provided there is no serious launch anomaly, SpaceX will deliver 80% of Earth's payload to orbit this year, not counting Starship. Right? Just Falcon 9 launches and maybe Falcon Heavy launches. SpaceX will launch 80% of Earth's payload. This is probably by mass, the amount of mass to orbit, not counting Starship. Starship, if it's successful, which I think it's pretty likely Starship will be delivering payloads to orbit by the end of the year. Starship will be delivering much bigger payloads, so this number gets bigger. So SpaceX is dominating the launch industry. Just absolutely 80% of payload to orbit. SpaceX is completely dominating the launch industry, and its lead is accelerating. So, did I miss something? No, I didn't. Okay. So then I wanted to mention this because Xavier mentioned this, and I had already planned to talk about this. Relativity Space is a startup that launches from Cape Canaveral, and I watched this launch in person from Jetty Park. They 3D print 85% of this rocket. I think their long-term plan is to 3D print nearly all of the rocket. Their next vehicle is coming up, Terran R. They made it through Max Q, the highest stress state on the printed structures. Big proof. They got to stage separation, the main engine cut off in stage separation. There was some kind of problem igniting the second stage engine, so they didn't get to orbit, but they made real progress. And this, if it had succeeded, would have been the first methalox, methane, liquid oxygen, liquid methane, liquid oxygen rocket to orbit. They didn't make orbit. And by the way, it looked really cool. It was really fun to watch. The color of the plume was different than a Falcon 9 or than SLS. Different propellants have different colors. So SLS is a hydrogen rocket. Falcon 9 is an RP-1 rocket with liquid oxygen. And Relativity Space is a methane and liquid oxygen rocket. If you've seen Starship launches, you notice the engines have kind of a bluish tint to them. So you kind of saw that with this rocket. And it was really exciting. I actually know somebody who works there. Not well, but met somebody, know them a little bit. And I thought when I watched this launch that it looked like there was a grass fire or some other fire at the pad. That the fire, the light from the pad lasted longer, significantly longer than usual. Usually with SpaceX, the launch goes up and the pad goes dark. And the pad was lit up for minutes after launch. So, all right. Given all the work on the booster, okay, so let me just cover one last thing. The Boring Company. You guys know I love to talk about the Boring Company. I actually think the Boring Company may be Elon's biggest company in terms of value. I know that's hard to grasp, but what they're doing is amazing. They've announced a proposal to expand. They currently have about a mile or like 2 miles of tunnel in Las Vegas. There's a current plan that's already established to build like 29 miles of tunnel total. Now they're looking to expand that to 65 miles of tunnel. This is a great example of what can happen with the Boring Company. And my vision is 1,000 cities in the world have 100 miles of tunnel, and that's 100,000 miles of tunnel. So Boring Company goes from 2 miles of tunnel to 100,000 miles of tunnel. That's a 50,000x. The company's current market cap is around $6 billion. So you figure 50,000x times 6 billion, and you can see where that's going. And I just picture, and that's not accounting tunnels that go between cities. And just the boring the Bering Strait, like I've talked about, would be another 25,000 miles if you did 4 tunnels from Los Angeles to Shanghai. So I think there's potential for the Boring Company to own hundreds of thousands of miles of tunnels, making a dollar a customer per mile, right? If you stand up the numbers, like maybe it's less than that, maybe if it's 10 cents a mile per customer, and you get 10,000 miles of tunnel, that's $1,000 a day, right? Times 400 days, you just get to insane numbers for the value of Boring Company. Just absolutely insane numbers. And now what's happening with the Boring Company, what's slowing them up or what's taking time is they've built a factory to build their next generation tunnel boring machine, and that building is built. So the plan was to start producing 1 tunnel boring machine a month or 12 a year. And when you take 12, and each one of them will do 50 miles of tunnel a year. So you're talking about 600 miles of tunnel a year just on the first year's tunnel boring machines. And that's a lot, right? But then they're planning to do a next generation tunneling machine after that will be even faster. And then they'll produce a higher volume of those machines and deliver more tunnels in more places. So, and yes, Mark Potocznik, the moderator Mark Potocznik, thank you, Mark, points out that the boring Las Vegas has already had over 1 million rides. I mean, this is just, think about that. 1 million rides on 2 miles of tunnel, probably charging $2 a ride, or, effectively it would cost $2 a ride. That's $2 million already. And that's if it's only $2 a ride. It's probably going to be more like $5 a ride or $10 a ride, depending on where it is. Your hole is our goal. Very nice. So Raymond says, is Elon waiting for Starlink to be cash flow positive before IPO? Will you put a bit of your house money to IPO instead of Tesla? There's two potential IPOs coming up. There's Starlink and there's Boring Company. I think Boring Company's further away. Starlink IPO, possibly next year they'll be cash flow positive. I do think he's waiting for it to be cash flow positive. I do think that's part of Elon's plan, is not to launch an IPO until they've demonstrated a working business model, because that'll increase the valuation. If it's actually working and making money, it's a lot easier to explain to people why they should give you money. If it's already losing money, it's a lot harder. I think there's an open question. What will the valuation be of Starlink when they do their IPO? I see Starlink being a multi-trillion-dollar company, at least $1 trillion company, and maybe a $5 trillion company. Check my channel. I've done videos. Search my channel for Starlink and you'll see it. So if Starlink IPOs at a $50 billion valuation, then that's a 20x. Yeah, I'll buy shares of Starlink at the IPO. If it's, launches at a $200 billion market cap, then yeah, maybe not. I will have to see what it launches at in terms of valuation. Same thing with Boring Company. I don't expect Boring Company to IPO for 2 or 3 years. By that point, they should have 20 plus tunnel boring machines, maybe 50 tunnel boring machines, boring projects all over the world. And, depending on their business model, will they be making money on that yet? I'm not sure. So we'll see. But I think Boring Company, you just do the numbers on what I said. Let's say you had 100,000 miles of tunnel and you were making $400 a mile. It was 10 cents a mile times 10,000. So $4,000 a mile, right? That a year? No, that was a day. It was a day. No, sorry. No, I think it was 10,000 passengers a day paying 10 cents a mile is $1,000 a mile. Times 400 days is $400,000 per mile for a year, times 100,000 miles. 400. That's. I'm struggling with that math. I think that's like 40. Is that $40 billion a year in revenue? I think it's more than that. And then I don't think it's really limited to 100,000 miles, and I think they might be able to get more than 10 cents a mile per passenger. So maybe 50 cents a mile per passenger. Just crazy how much that value there is. And, the potential, like the boring the Bering Strait and replacing all calculator. Please use a calculator. All right, I'm going to do it. You persuaded me to use a calculator. What did I get? 10,000 times 0.1 is $1,000 times 400 is 400,000 times 100,000. Okay, do that again. I think I got 40 billion. I think I got $40 billion a year in revenue. Well, $40 billion a year in revenue, and then you give it a PE ratio of 25 and you're at $1 trillion valuation. Oh, 400 days just because it's easier to calculate than 365 days. That's just a fudge factor. I think 100,000 miles of tunnel is small, and I think use a Sotoban. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to use an abacus. Okay, so I'm just going to look at the chat to see. If you have questions for the chat, please let me know. Cienfuegos says, many Teslas in Panama already, and it's a tiny market. Hola, Panama. I was not aware that there's a lot of Teslas in Panama. Cienfuegos, is there a supercharging network? Please come and let me know if there's a supercharging network in Panama. Yeah, it's just rounding up. If we hit 2 million this year, along with decent megapack growth, $500 share price by Q1 2024. Okay, so here's the thing. I am not going to make short-term stock price predictions. I want to address this now because I'm talking about growth. I'm talking about long-term growth. I'm not talking about short-term share price growth. So if we see Tesla grow by more than 50% this year, so we're talking about Q1 2024, first, somewhere in January 2024, Tesla announces their numbers. January 2nd, they announced what the deliveries were, production deliveries were for the year. They don't typically announce Tesla Energy numbers, but we'll have a hint of that by looking at Q1, Q2, and Q3 numbers for Tesla Energy. Are we seeing the growth that was projected or not? But you get to Q1 2024 and they announce, hey, we delivered over 2 million vehicles. And this was our revenue from that. We delivered, energy increased 150% or 200% and became 10% of revenue. And you can see the growth there. I would like to say that leads to the share price going up dramatically. That we see this going over the quarters of the year. As each quarter gets better and better, we should see these numbers grow and we should see share price grow. But there's a whole lot of things going on in the economy that are holding down stock price valuations. There's a variety of things that are holding down stock price valuations. One of them is the economy, right? There's people concerned we're going to have a hyperinflation. There's people concerned we're going to have some kind of debt collapse or banking collapse. There's a lot of fears out there in the economy. And these are the kind of thing that hold stock prices down even when the numbers are good. So predicting the path of Tesla stock price, stainless steel water bottles and t-shirts at elonbits.com. There's another stainless steel water bottle back here, the Elon water bottle. Thanks to Fred Jessup for the Tesla lamp. So don't get carried away with short-term share price. I am a long-term investor. I am looking out to 2025, 2030, so on. Really 2026 to 2030 and mainly 2030. I'm hoping, facing financial pressures, we'll see, but I'm hoping not to sell any stock until 2026 or 2030, really 2030. But yeah. So let me see. Plans for long-range Model 3. Rob, I'm not sure if you mean my long-range Model 3 or something else. Sentient says, given all the work on the booster, any chance of them attempting to catch? I don't think SpaceX is going to try to catch the super heavy booster under Starship on the first try. I think they're just going to get a good launch. They have said they're going to do a soft water landing. I think they want to make sure that they're going to monitor how it lands, and if it lands well, then they'll try to catch it on the next one. On Starlink, there's already a couple of people using it in Panama already off zone, and it's faster than optic fiber here, I'm sure. Model 3 rear-wheel drive may lose federal incentive. That's true. How many semis do you think Tesla will eventually sell a year? Is $400,000 realistic selling price? Yes, it's a realistic selling price. $400,000 a year. $400,000 is a realistic selling price, and I think they will sell $200,000 a year. What is going on here? I'm just weird things happening with the chat for me. Somebody asked me to talk about the profound synergy between all of Elon's companies. I don't know if I would use the word profound. I would just say that there's a lot of cooperation between Elon's companies, that SpaceX and Tesla have collaborated all along. Boring Company's CEO was a SpaceX employee, SpaceX engineer. There's definitely a lot of collaboration, like Starship, the SpaceX rockets use Model 3 battery packs, or they use motors from Tesla. SpaceX material science team helped with developing the stainless steel for Cybertruck. They helped with developing the aluminum alloy that's used in the Giga castings, a variety of things there. I don't know a whole lot more about that. Comment on current plans between Tesla and Indonesia. I'm not aware of any well-defined plans between Tesla and Indonesia. I know that there's talk, but talk is talk until it's something real, and I don't like to predict that. I don't think many people saw Giga Mexico coming until a couple days before it came out, before they made the formal announcement. A lot of people were talking about Indonesia. A lot of people were talking about Korea. A lot of people I was talking about Japan, other places in the US. I think Giga Mexico was a little bit of a surprise to me because it seems like it's not that far from Austin, so why build there? But it may be that, a lot of Giga Texas's supply chain is in Mexico already, so building Giga Mexico allows them to leverage their existing supply chain to do more. Have I had a chance to test the newest version of FSD? Any thoughts on it? Yes. My kid was here with my Model 3 long range from 2018 that has version 11.3.1 of FSD beta. We drove it for about 2 hours. I live in Cape Canaveral. We drove to Melbourne and back, and we went a little bit out of our way here and there. There's one particular spot. There's a left turn that I make in my Model X that has 10.69.25.3, a slightly older version of FSD beta. And for a few months trying that left turn, it has not done that left turn well. It comes up to the left. The road is shaped kind of like curved like this, and it seems like the car can't see where the lines are as it's approaching the intersection. And as it gets up to the intersection on 10.69, the tether, the blue tentacle or whatever that sticks out on the front and the UI starts flickering left to right. And instead of making the left turn it's supposed to make, 9 times out of 10 it would make the right turn. So the Model 3 with FSD Beta 11.3.1 did the left turn correctly twice in a row. Now, should I have done it a few more times? Maybe, but it did it correctly twice in a row. I did see one flicker of the tether to the right, but it made the correct turn. So, how many Cybertrucks by end of year? I think that's going to be a small number. I think less than 10,000. How soon until we see North America lithium iron phosphate cells either by Tesla or one of their suppliers? I definitely think that there are suppliers working on lithium iron phosphate plants in the US, battery cell manufacturing in the US, but I haven't seen anything definite yet. I think that Tesla will make lithium iron phosphate cells, but when so far there was a thought, I had a thought that there's Tesla has reportedly leased 1 million square feet of space in Houston. And I had a thought that maybe that's where they're going to build lithium iron phosphate cells because 1 million square feet's a lot. But I saw on the Tesla career website that there's only a couple of jobs right now, but they seem to indicate it's a warehouse. So I think it's logistics to support Giga Texas. My guess would be that stuff comes into the Port of Houston. This Port of Houston is probably the closest port for Giga Texas. So my guess would be they're using this warehouse as a staging ground for material that's coming in from the Port of Houston before it goes to Austin. What spot am I on the waiting list for Cybertruck? I'm roughly number 10,000. I ordered in the first hour. William PMCD says $25,000 car in approximately 18 months, question mark. No, I don't think so. I think they'll start manufacturing the car in 18 months or less. Like they haven't broke ground yet. Will they complete the factory in less than a year? I think there's a good chance of that. So if they break ground, what are we in March now? So they break ground in June or July. They build the factory in about a year. So it's June or July of 2024 that they built the factory. They get the equipment going in the factory in 2024. And they probably start production in 2024, early 2025. That's my best guess on that. And I should say, I think people are focusing a little more than they should on Giga Mexico. Giga Mexico is important. I think we are going to see additional next generation vehicle factories in other locations. I think Tom Zhu told us that they'll build multiple factories at the same time. I think we're going to see a next generation vehicle platform factory built, structure built in Giga Texas, in or near Giga Texas. It could be somewhere else, but I think Texas makes sense. It may be that for labor reasons they choose another location, but I think that makes sense. I think we're going to see one in Berlin, and I think we're in or near Berlin. And I think we're definitely going to see one in Shanghai. And then there's a question, will we see one in Japan? I think it makes sense to do one in Japan. Yes, Mark Plot. Mark Plot says, I think Giga Mexico is targeting the Latin America market, not the United States of America. I think that is correct. I think that vehicles produced at Giga Mexico at the Tesla factory outside of Monterrey, Mexico, I think those vehicles are going to go south, maybe elsewhere, but I don't think they're going to come to the United States. I don't think that's the plan. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think what's likely is Tesla will build a next generation vehicle factory in the United States, and Giga Mexico will sell to Mexico and all of Latin America and maybe a few other markets, maybe Africa, who knows. And I'm making that up. That's just a guess. And maybe Europe. Maybe Giga Mexico will deliver to Europe, but I think what's more likely is we will see Giga Mexico deliver to Latin America. We'll see a European next generation vehicle factory and so on. John Bay says, which will be greater revenue for Tesla, the semi or the Cybertruck? Both should be great. That's a good question. I think they'll make 4 times as many Cybertrucks. But Semi is going to cost more than 4 times as much or 4 times as much. So it should be about even. I think there's actually more market for semi or something like semi in other countries. I'm not sure how much market there is for Cybertruck in other countries. If it may be that there's a work truck version of Cybertruck as well that would work in other countries. I'm just not sure. So I think overall, long term, Tesla Semi might end up being more revenue for the company because they'll not only sell them in North America, but they'll sell them in other parts of the world. They'll have to reform them, but they'll do that. And I just don't see a huge pickup truck market in other countries. Tesla van in 2020. I think a Tesla van, maybe based on the Cybertruck platform, would make sense. Can I comment on Tesla footprint in Africa? As far as I know, Tesla has nearly zero footprint in Africa. Africa is a small market. It matters in the long run, but not immediately. Michelle says, I'm number 2 million for the Cybertruck. I don't think they're up to 2 million yet. Last number I heard was like 1.7 million, and who knows how accurate that is. Cybertruck would sell well. See, nothing Tesla makes will sell. Mark Plot says Cybertruck would sell well in Africa. Nothing Tesla makes will sell well in Africa because Africa is poor. The volume simply isn't there. This is one of those things. Same thing with India. Same thing with Bangladesh or Pakistan. They're very populous countries. There's large numbers of people in these countries, or in case of Africa, on the continent. But there's so much poverty. There's so little wealth that not many people can afford to buy a Tesla. Even the Model 3 standard range, even the next generation vehicle platform at $25,000, I think it's gonna be $20,000, will be a hard sell in a place where people are so poor. Alex K says, should Tesla be more aggressive and innovative, trying to get people to upgrade their vehicles and get more aggressive in the pre-owned refurbished market, similar to smartphones? No, I think Tesla's doing just fine. I think trying to piece together that question. Trying to get people to upgrade. There's plenty of demand for Tesla vehicles. Plenty of us want to upgrade to the next vehicle. I don't think they have a problem getting people excited about their new vehicles. And I don't think there's a challenge in getting people to buy used Teslas. It's just, there's a demand problem in general because of the economic situation. But Mark Potashnik says, I'm about 1 million on the Cybertruck, but probably can't afford it. Well, we'll see where the pricing is when you get to your the millionth vehicle, which is probably, that's a question people ask me. When do I think they'll deliver, how many? And I think we're probably looking at 10,000 this year and 200,000 next year. And I'm making up numbers. Maybe it's better than that. Maybe it's 50,000 this year and 300,000 next year. But, it's really, there was a report that there's a second, there's a rumor at least, and maybe a report that there's a second 9,000 ton gigapress being delivered from Idra to Giga Texas, which would mean they're going for 2 lines, which I think makes sense. I think the original plan was they're going to make 250,000 to 300,000 vehicles a year. They have a really good sense of what these gigapresses can do, and I think they can do about 250,000 units a year. The castings for 250,000 units a year. So ordering 2 gigapresses means they're planning on making 500,000 a year. That's my rough guess. Michelle says, is there somewhere we can see our Tesla driving score? I can't see my Tesla driving score. If you have Tesla insurance, you can see your driving score. Otherwise, I don't think you can, to my knowledge. Raymond Chen mentions GPT training another API like Alpaca cheaply. Let me just talk about GPT really quick. This morning, I decided to pay for the upgrade to GPT-4. It's $20 a month. I was playing with it. Stinky Fingers, yes, I believe that the video an Investor Day of Optimus, I didn't say it was fake, I said it was simulation. I think that was the simulation software. I don't think that was actual Optimus doing the things that it showed. I could be wrong. Most people think I'm wrong. I still think I'm correct about that. I don't know that we'll ever know. So, GPT. So I paid $20 a month to use GPT-4. Go to chat.openai.com. I'm pretty impressed. I think it's a step up from ChatGPT version 3, whatever, 3.5. I asked some pretty extensive questions. If you go to my Twitter today, WR4NYGov, just search for Warren Redlich on Twitter. You can find it. I think that the improvement is significant. I asked it questions, like I have this plan to build a solar farm home. I asked it questions about that. I asked it questions about the likely efficiency of my pod car given my projected frontal surface area and mass and so on. And it said, initially it said I could do 20 miles a kilowatt hour, which is my target, which I was kind of surprised at. Then I asked it to add in rolling resistance considering the weight, and that brought it down to 15 miles a kilowatt hour. I think I'm going to be able to tweak the frontal surface area and maybe get the weight a little lower and maybe get a better coefficient of drag. I basically gave it the same coefficient of drag as the Aptera, which is 0.13. Maybe I can do better on that coefficient of drag. I think big thing is we can get the frontal surface area down. That's going to be the big deal. And I had this idea, by the way. I had this idea for the pod car. Oh, I'm meeting with. I met with. I went to University of Florida. My younger child got into University of Florida. Very excited about that. Took kid to an orientation. While we were there, I stopped at a place called Gator Motorsports. If you're a Florida fan, you should check out Gator Motorsports. They have like a project building electric race cars. We're building an electric race car for a competition. I talked via LinkedIn with a couple of the guys there. I went there and met with a different guy there. Had a nice conversation. Meeting with somebody from Florida Tech this week, and want to talk to him about. I'm thinking about hiring a summer intern. It's probably not going to be this summer. It's probably going to be next summer, or maybe, but I'd like hire an intern for 12 weeks to build the pod car or to build the solar farm home. I haven't made up my mind what I'm doing first yet. I'm waiting on my engineer in Athens, Georgia, who has the pre-prototype, and he just told me he was having some issues, so it's going to be another week before I get the pre-prototype. Wolf says, how many gigapresses are in Berlin now? They're on a 250,000 run rate. I think that there are. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know how many gigapresses there are at Berlin now. That's a good question. We should ask Joe Tetmeyer that question. Maka 302 says, I'm 1,000% wrong on the robots demo being simulation. They are real. Well, obviously, if random person on YouTube chat comment says I'm wrong, then I must be wrong. I'll tell you, if you watch that video from Investor Day of the Optimus bots moving around doing stuff, number one, there's this moment where it pulls a plug, and I did not think that looked realistic. That looked like CGI, simulation, whatever. It didn't look real to me. And then just the way the whole thing was set up, my sense of how much they've accomplished with with Optimus so far, I don't think they've gotten that far. Michelle says, did anyone buy a Tesla new and then have FSD released to you? How long did it take? I bought my Model X in June. It took 3 or 4 months to get beta. You still have FSD without beta. It's just not, it's limited, but it's still, I was still able to drive on some non-highway situations with FSD. It's not nearly as good as FSD beta, just to be clear. Am I going to use geothermal? No. Yes, the idea would be a paid internship. I would pay somebody I don't know, $20 an hour. Not a Clinton intern, no. Any word on whether they're building or selling more semi? The idea of the internship is to find somebody who's working. The guy I'm meeting with this week from Florida Tech, which is Florida Institute of Technology in Melbourne, he's working on a related, building a car project. I just think getting a student who's, between sophomore and junior year and having them help me build, what I really want to do with the pod car, which by the way, that brings me back. I had this idea for the pod car. I've been thinking about how to build it. And now I had this idea. What if the bottom of the vehicle was a sheet of stainless steel, like Cybertruck's stainless steel, not the same metal, not the same alloy as Cybertruck, but build it out of Cybertruck is 3 millimeter thick. What if it was 1.5 to 2 millimeters thick? What if that was the base platform? It's so much easier to manufacture than putting together a whole bunch of pieces. And then how do you build the platform, the vehicle on top of that platform? I think that's an interesting idea. I'm not saying it's the right idea. I just think it's an interesting idea. Maka 302, you don't have a picture in your profile. I appreciate that you're here every week, but I don't recognize your name. And look, I might be wrong. I don't know you that well. I can't even tell if you're a subscriber you're a subscriber if you're chatting. You're not a YouTube channel member. David Navari says, I don't think Elon would deceive people at Investor Day. He didn't say it was real. Where did Elon say this is actual Optimus bots doing these things? I don't think he said it was actual bots. Elon, in an interview, said it's 100% real, but it did take a few attempts. What interview? Where did you see it? I didn't see an interview about that. I watch it. I swear I watch it. Maybe I missed it. And I have been busy, just to be clear. Like I said, I spent the last 2 days with Kid 2, taking Kid 2 up to the University of Florida and going dancing. Kid 2 also likes to dance, so we went country line dancing. I've got other stuff going on with the house, trying to sell the house. We had a contract on the house. The buyer walked out on the contract. Had some fights over that. A whole bunch of things going on. So I'm having a fun time. Stephen Mark Ryan asked, what are you stressed about? I'm like, oh, I'm stressed about selling my house. So trying to get my workouts in, all that stuff. Actually physically tired from all the exercise I've been doing. I think I'm pushing myself a little too hard, but not super too hard. Let's see. Any word on are they building or selling more semis? Seems to be a secret. I don't think the plan with semi is they're building a new factory space in Nevada. So the existing semi line is not going to ramp in any significant way. They're building a small volume of semis in the existing line to start getting them out there and learn about the manufacturing process. But they're going to be building a whole new factory in Giga, Nevada. So don't expect semi to ramp until next year. They even start ramping until next year. I mean, it's probably going to take them a year to build out the addition to the factory in Nevada, right? So we're in March now. So you're talking March 2024 before they really even start manufacturing in the new facility. So don't expect a high volume of semis for a while. Brooke Chen says, I just take walks every day for exercise. So every morning, almost every morning, I walk to the gym on the beach, walk back from the gym. I work out of the gym for about an hour. I do strength training 4 days a week, and I do high intensity cardio 2 days a week at the gym. And then I go dancing 2 to 4 nights a week. So I'm getting, and like my thighs are getting, I've started doing, Stephen Mark Ryan's fault. I started doing squats. And like now my thighs hurt when I dance. It's crazy. Throwing your Model X in the house sale and close the deal. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Any news regarding 4680 in mass production? I think 4680 is ramping. It's just, it takes time to ramp. And, you know, there's multiple issues. There's one, ramping to volume. And then there's two, which is getting the cathode facility going so that they're getting the cathode material and getting, you know, dry battery electrode and all that together. And then the next thing is improving the chemistry over time. So if Elon was trying to deceive us on Investor Day, I don't think that Elon said this is real. I don't know. It's not the joints, it's the muscles that are hurting. I think the joints are fine. With brighter, Elon wasn't interviewed by Herbert. Come on, stinky fingers. Elon did not get interviewed by Herbert. If Herbert did, somebody tell me I'm wrong. Did Elon do an interview with Herbert? I must have missed something. What's my opinion of MBAs and lawyers in light of Elon's view of them? I pretty much shared Elon's view of MBAs and lawyers before Elon said anything about them, and Sandy Monroe has a roughly similar view. Look, I am a now retired lawyer. I do think there are good people around. Zach Kirkhorn has an MBA. I'm a retired lawyer. I think I did good work for people as a lawyer. I think there are plenty of good lawyers out there, plenty of good MBAs out there, but on the whole, their contribution to society is less than I'm a big fan of engineers. I think engineers do more for society. I think lawyers on the one hand do some very valuable things, MBAs do some very valuable things, but they also do things on the opposite side. And I just there's so much of I don't know the MBA world as well. I know the legal world fairly well. And there's so much negative in the legal world. The fact that we create laws that make jobs for lawyers, and the lawyers themselves do good work, but it's because of laws that were created often by lawyers who got elected that created work. And really a lot of this is on the voters for voting for things. Like in 10 minutes, I'm going to be wrapping up this video and going to my live stream on the Daily Lie, warrenredlick.locals.com. And I'll be talking about the drug war. And the drug war is a job creation act for lawyers and others, but it's not good for society. And I felt that I saw a lot of behavior that I would describe as not super noble among lawyers, particularly in the personal injury world, but also in the criminal defense world and in the prosecution world. Kirkhorn discusses learnings. Thoughts on the recent Jim Farley interview and their expectations to try to reach 8% gross margins for their EV business. So I saw that Ford is breaking out their EV numbers separately from the rest of the company. And I did not find it credible. I think that they're losing a lot more money per vehicle than they're showing. I think if they were accounting for their losses the way Rivian and Lucid account for their losses, then their losses would be much greater on a per vehicle basis. I think that they left out the amortization of R&D that happened before. That's just my gut hunch. Yeah, it's not just tort reform. It's so much more than tort reform. Tort reform is part of it, but like honestly, like, you know, some of you probably believe in speeding tickets. I think we should get rid of speeding tickets, and we will. Robotaxi will get rid of speeding tickets. I think we shouldn't treat drunk driving as a criminal offense, and that'll make a lot of people mad. But read my book, Fair DUI. There's probably a link to my book in the video description. Read my book, Fair DUI, and get an understanding of how the DUI system works and how awful it is. Hi, be nice. Wolf says, I was on jury duty recently. It was painful to watch the lawyer defend someone who was obviously guilty. Well, you probably shouldn't have formed an opinion about whether they were guilty or not before the case was over. That was probably the instruction you were given. I have defended people who people thought were guilty. And I would say that, just so you understand, my job as an attorney, every one of my clients is innocent until they're proven guilty. I'm not an attorney anymore, but as a criminal defense lawyer, I treated every client as if they were innocent until they were proven guilty, because that's how the law works. And if you're hiring a lawyer to defend you in a criminal case, do you want one who believes you're guilty, or do you want one who believes you're innocent? You want to, and that's not to say I wasn't unrealistic, but I'm always looking for, how can I demonstrate to a jury, or how can I demonstrate to a judge that this case shouldn't go forward? Or how can I help this client get in a better situation, like mental health counseling, drug counseling, whatever, and get them in a better situation, and then go to the prosecutor and the judge and say, hey, he's doing these things to do better. Can we work out a deal? That's what we do a lot, honestly. That's what good criminal defense lawyers do a lot. Jupiter James says he learned that labor costs in Mexico are way less than China. Not what I expected. I'm not 100% sure that's true, but I'm open to it. OJ was acquitted. Great system. I think OJ was correctly acquitted. That'll piss off a lot of people, but I think that the prosecution's case was weak. The prosecution did a very poor job. The police did a very poor job. If you think that the police did a good job investigating OJ, maybe I should do a video on the Daily Lie about. I'll do a video on the Daily Lie about the OJ case. That sounds like a good idea. I want to talk about the OJ case. I want people to understand. I'm not saying whether he's innocent or guilty. I'm saying the case that was presented to the jury, both because of the police and because of the prosecutors. And yes, there was good defense lawyers working for OJ, but primarily because of the police and secondarily because of the prosecutors. The police did such a horrible job on the OJ case, and the prosecutors did a pretty bad job on the OJ case. The jury had to find him not guilty. They had to. I don't know about Stephen Avery, but I'll look it up. All right, so we got 5 minutes left. Let me just, before I wrap up, just quickly mention again, t-shirts at elonbits.com. I'm going to be going live on the Daily Live, warrenredlick.locals.com in about 5 minutes. The merch, stainless steel water bottles, also at elonbits.com. I wear these shirts all the time. I use these water bottles all the time. They're awesome. The company that delivers them is slow. They're slower than slow. They're going to tell you it's going to be a month. It's going to be 2 months. Just be ready for that. The stuff's worth it. I love this material. I love this shirt. I wear them all the time. I love the stainless steel water bottle. I use it all the time, but they're really slow. And I'm apologizing for that now, just getting that out of the way. All right. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover. So always film the police. Yeah. Check out my book. If we're going to talk about the criminal stuff, check out my book in the link in the description below, Fair DUI. I got myself arrested once following this and unarrested, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. That's not in the book. But I think to understand what happens now, DUI cases are going to become irrelevant. This is the beautiful thing about self-driving cars and robotaxis, is all this stuff that I'm talking about now. Speeding tickets are going to go away. Drunk driving is going to go away. Driving with a suspended license is going to go away. Uninsured drivers are going to go away. There's so many problems that happen on the roads. That are going to go away. All the traffic accidents, the personal injury law. When the cars stop crashing, the world gets so much better. Now, I have a friend who's a personal injury lawyer, and I was telling him about how robotaxis are going to change the world and there's going to be fewer car accidents, and he looked really depressed. This is one of the shocking things. I have a friend who's a marijuana lawyer. I said we should legalize marijuana. He smokes marijuana. He says, no, we shouldn't legalize marijuana. I make too much money defending marijuana cases. And he's still my friend. He said he was kidding later. So, all right. So I want to thank everybody. The bra is not fit. The bra is not fit. You must have quit. Thank you, Seinfeld. All right. So I'm going to wrap up now. In about 5 minutes, I'm going to start up on the Daily Lie. Link in the description below. It's Warren. Just go to warrenredlich.locals.com or check the description below and check out that video. We'll be talking about the fentanyl crisis, the drug war, what's called the iron law of prohibition. And I think I will do a video. I want to thank for the chat. I'm going to do a video about OJ. So this is going to be fun. Let's get excited. I was going to say, are you ready? Let's go. But please check out my other videos. Please support me on the Locals platform, on Patreon, as YouTube channel member. Check out the merch at elonbits.com. Thanks. Like this video, share, and subscribe. Thank you to Mark Potachnik, Mark Plott, and any other moderators who are there that I missed. And y'all have a great